Thanks, Julia. Very happy to be here with you in the Sistine Chapel. I don't know, it took me half an hour to even look up at the ceiling, so I'm hoping to avoid you having the same fate. So, as Julia suggested, my goal and our goal in this book that we've written, in a way the goal of this entire panel, is to have you avoid complacence about this issue of what machines are going to do to humans. And, while I would like to agree with Joe Maciarello that management is and always will be a human activity, I'm not so sure. And I hope to persuade you of that same uncertainty. So let me start with the appeal to people smarter than myself, which is never terribly difficult. Elon Musk, the founder of Tesla and SpaceX and one of the founders of PayPal, said that artificial intelligence is one of the biggest existential threats to human beings. Stephen Hawking said similarly that he fears for the future of humanity because of artificial intelligence. Robert Shiller, a Nobel Prize winner in economics, said that this issue of machines taking humans' jobs is one of the greatest problems, or the greatest problem in the world today, he argued. And a couple of guys published, did you edit this piece, Julia? Moore and David Au, a little blog post in the Harvard Business Review arguing that there would soon be hordes of citizens with zero economic value. A rather dramatic line.
And so well edited.
A lot of very smart people are saying that this is certainly not something that we need to be complacent about. Let me also argue from the standpoint of advancing technology. And Joe mentioned briefly cognitive systems. I think we all have this idea of IBM Watson in our brains as the representation of that technology, but it's actually a broader category than that. Certainly, Watson, which started out as a very impressive tool for ingesting and then taking decisions and actions on text, is a very powerful tool. But since then, Watson has grown to ingest images as well. IBM bought a very large medical imaging repository that they're going to use for health diagnoses and treatment recommendations. There are a whole variety. My background over the last 10 or 15 years has been analytics and big data, and there are some amazing tools now for numeric analysis, machine learning, and the like. Lots and lots of problems that we humans couldn't even consider doing without human help. The idea of deciding what digital ad to place on what publisher site, is that something that humans can deliberate on and make that decision themselves? Well, hardly, because in general there's about 15 milliseconds to make that decision. It involves gigabytes, if not larger amounts of data, and typically 5,000 models need to be created every week in order to do that personalization well. There are tools for managing digital tasks, sometimes called robotic process automation. And as you might imagine, all of the outsourcing companies, particularly the offshore outsourcing companies, are very concerned that the outsourcing activities previously performed by humans could be done by these robotic process automation technologies. Then there is, of course, the idea of physical tasks. The much loved, seemingly, it keeps coming up all the time. Most of these cognitive systems are just software running on servers, but we love this imagery of robots for some reason. And robots are making substantial progress as well. There's a new generation of collaborative robots that can work alongside human beings very effectively and not hit them and knock them down and kill them or something like that. And I heard visiting IBM Watson headquarters in New York earlier this week that IBM Watson is now going to be downloaded into robot brains as well. So progress in all of these areas. So I've made the appeal from people smarter than myself. I've made the appeal from technology. Let me make the appeal a little bit more personal. So I studied the backgrounds of the people attending this gathering. And let me read a few of these to you. There are editors and journalists. Sorry, Andrew and Adi. There are marketers, there are doctors, there are wealth managers, professors and educators, lawyers, people in educational executive search, accountants and auditors, pharmaceutical researchers, insurance executives. I've got bad news for all of you. Every one of those jobs has had tasks that have already been successfully automated. Now, the key word is tasks. If you're a lawyer, for example, there is no smart machine that can do all the things a great lawyer can do. But there are some very capable machines that can do, document analysis in commercial litigation. What this means is that entire jobs will not be eliminated at one swipe by smart machines. This will happen sort of bit by bit, piece by piece. In the future, for every 10 lawyers we have today, we may need only 8. I don't see any tears at that, Julia. In the future, where radiologists once needed another human to be a second set of eyes, a machine can provide a second set of eyes and determine whether those lesions appearing in your radiological images are likely to be cancerous or not. In fact, that's not the future, that's the present. I think there is plenty of reason for concern that key tasks of knowledge worker jobs are going to be taken over by smart machines. And this is really only a logical progression from what we have seen over the past couple of centuries. I think we're all quite comfortable with the idea now that many manual labor jobs were taken over by machines during the Industrial Revolution. How many of you dealt with a human airline reservations clerk as you made your flight reservations to come here today? A couple of holdouts, but not very many. How many of you got the last cash that you received from a bank from a human bank teller? Even fewer holdouts there. Now, the good news, I guess, is that in the United States, there are still 80,000 bank tellers. There were 80,000 bank tellers 40 years ago. The United States has a lot more people than it had 40 years ago, but no more bank tellers. And I think that's the kind of future that we're going to see as pieces of jobs are taken over by machines. Now, Julia and I have strived to be optimistic in our research and writing on this topic, and we think there are going to be a substantial number of jobs. I don't really fear all that much for the people in this room because you're hardworking and intelligent and you'll find a way to succeed. In fact, we've identified 5 classes of jobs, 3 of which involve working directly with smart machines, the doctor using a smart machine as a second set of eyes or as a source of establishing probabilities for various treatment protocols and illness hypotheses. 3 jobs that involve working directly with these machines, and a couple of job categories that involve kind of end runs around them. So there are certainly possible employment outcomes, and as I say, I'm not worried for the best and brightest of every society, but for the vast majority of people, it's going to take some very hard work, some assiduous efforts to understand how these machines work and how they can add value to them if they're going to stay employed. And with that chilling conclusion, I will sit down.
I was going to say, maybe you took this wake-up call thing a little too hard. I mean, the thing about the journalists being replaced by robots was cutting a little close to the bone. But let's bring our other panelists into the conversation. And in fact, Charles Edouard, I think Roland Berger has done some research relevant to this notion of jobs, knowledge work jobs actually beginning to fall to...
Yes, exactly. And as you all know, there's this Oxford's study that said that 47% of the job will disappear by 2025. And what we thought is would be interesting to look at European countries. And being French, we started with France. We look at the 700 classification, actually 702 from INSEE, and we look at what would be the impact. And the result was 42%. It created a lot of turmoil because we released this on a Sunday. There's only one newspaper on Sundays in France. It's called Journal du Dimanche, and everybody's reading it, going to the tennis or with the kids. And the study had a big impact. But what is more interesting, as Tom said, is we found 3 types of class of work. The first one, of course, the 80% chance of all the tasks being removed. Very, very classical manual worker, manual activities. But for the first time, we found some intellectual repetitive tasks. In the past, we also that automation, digital, we replace, these stupid tasks. But when it's a task which is intellectual and can be repeated, that can be automated. The second group, and it was new, is what we call the 40 to 70% chance of being replaced. And you start to find some qualified jobs. As Tom introduced people in this room, myself, ourselves, there's work, 80% of qualified work and 20% of routine work. And that's why this is changing. And this job are the legal assistant with things like legal life. They are the lab technicians. Tom mentioned him with Watson. These jobs are being challenged. And then there's the last group, which is less challenged, and surprisingly, it's made of 2 different groups of people. It's made of the highly qualified people that over time have delegated the volume work, the repetitive tasks, to some clerk, to some assistant, and they will be very happy to be replaced by a machine which is 100% efficient, 24/7, and is doing a lot of the work when they sleep. And this is one group of people. And there's another group, which, not surprising, is opening a lot of topics. This is the creative work. This is where creativity is important, new ideas, innovation, and that can come from jobs like hairdresser, because I'm not sure you want to be hairdressed by a robot and that everyone looks the same. The nurses for elderly, when you need to have some kind of attention, emotions. The dancer. I always use this very interesting example, which I put in one of my books, is on LinkedIn, I looked at what are the jobs that have been increasing dramatically in the last 5 years. And of course, there's all the data scientists and so on. And there's one profession that you can Google, is Zumba professor. So just to tell you that in the world of tomorrow, there are some emerging activities because we have more time, and we need someone to interact. And I use the example of the Zumba dancer because I think it's quite interesting. So a lot of more valuable activities, but a lot of challenges.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps we should give Zumba instruction to really provide value to the audience here today.
Right. I'll let you take the lead on that. I think we had also found one in personal shoppers. Personal shoppers is a new job category, tremendously on the rise. Let me bring in Martin. I mean, you're right there, kind of at the epicenter of a lot of the development of these new smart technologies in Silicon Valley. What do we not even know yet to be scared of that you've seen coming down the pipeline?
Well, if I may say, first, when we talk about being scared of this, as human beings, we are bipolar. When we work, we would love to get help with our work. And when we technologists bring you help with the work, you get scared of losing your work. So which one is it? I'm saying this because I think that of what mankind is doing today as labor and work and profession, nearly everything can be done soon by machines and robots. Nearly everything. Dancing, art, everything. Then, as Tom said, computers today or machines do things that human beings can't even begin to do. So there's that second group of work that we can never do, but the machines can. But then I think there's a third box with work that some people are doing today and that can expand enormously. And I will come back to this many times, but I'm optimistic that there's no end to what you can do. When you build a human being that has so many random features and faults and bipolar behavior, there's no machine that can be that erratic. So to me, that is proof that there will be ample work for us in addition to the machines. But they are coming. Today already there are artificial intelligence programs that write press articles automatically. And you don't know the difference. I don't know the difference. We don't know the difference. Julia probably knows the difference because you're a professional there. But for us, regular, stupid people, we don't see the difference.
So our erraticness is what will save us in the end. That's quite a reassuring. Let's go ahead and have Charles-Edouard make a statement about what you think is the nature of the problem we should be addressing.